After 15 long years of what I thought was the perfect marriage to ever exist, my wife, I've loved her and I thought she loved me. We were the perfect couple, as everybody would say. Well, I just found out something very devastating. My best friend, he said, "Hey, just so you know, I think your wife might be doing something with her stepbrother." Obviously, I'm like, are you out of your mind? That's not happening. But guys, ever since he tells me this, when I watch them interact, it feels like they have something going on. I don't know. Maybe it's all in my head. Maybe I'm being crazy. But I just seriously don't know what to do. I just discovered that the perfect life that I had for the past 15 years has been nothing more than a lie. Hey, I'm a 40-year-old male with 2 kids and a third one on the way. But it seems my world is about to come crashing down like a pack of cards, and I could not have seen the signs earlier on. I met my wife Sarah 17 years ago when I was still trying to build my life. Sarah was everything that I wanted in a wife, and we began dating. We dated for 2 years before we decided to get married. A day was fixed when I would go and meet with her and officially seek her hand in marriage from her parents. She told her parents and the entire family was there also, and I got to the house and found it on fire. And Sarah's mother was the one who had started it. It turned out that Sarah's father had cheated on his wife years back, and the result was her stepbrother Mark. Sarah and every other person in her family, her 4 sisters that she had no brother, had known about it except her mother, and they hid it from her. But her father decided it was time to let the cat out of the bag, since he was already aging and was tired of keeping the only son that he had from himself because of the scandal that would come out of it. So, his mother had somehow just straight up discovered about it that day, and there was too much drama that it would have just been wrong to raise up the issue of my marriage at this point. Sarah's mother refused to accept her stepbrother Mark, and this caused a friction in the family, especially as the father wanted him to move in with them. Our wedding eventually happened, but the tension was still in the family. My wife Sarah soon approached me, weeks after our marriage, to ask if we could let her stepbrother move in with us. According to her, her mother was threatening to divorce her father if he did not send Mark out of the house as he had moved in with them. I suggested to my wife that we could rent a place for him to stay, but she noted that there would likely be a need to put things in place before moving into the apartment, but her mother was already keeping everyone in her family uncomfortable. I granted my wife's wish and asked her stepbrother to move into the house. I was on the house rent issue, but before I could get the total amount, Sarah approached me and suggested that it would really serve her stepbrother more if we gave him the money that was supposed to be used to rent an apartment, rather than use it for business. She argued that since he did not have a job but had some great business ideas, he could use the money, and after he was settled a bit, he could move out of the house. Well, I saw reason with what my wife was saying, and I thought I was not, entirely comfortable with somebody who was almost my age living with me and my wife, but I decided to let him stay till the business which I had given him my money for to start thrived. Everything was going great in my marriage, and there was no cause for alarm. And really, nothing, until Dave came to my house one weekend for lunch. Dave was my friend with whom I started the media house, which was still trying to get on its feet at the time. We both had 50% stake in the company, and lunch was going pretty well. But Dave approached me the next week to express concern. It was related to my marriage. I was surprised to hear him say that because I was not experiencing any troubles in my marriage. Anyways, I asked him what this concern was, and he asked if I was sure Mark was my in-law. I didn't know where he was coming from with this, but I was pretty sure that he was aware Mark was my in-law. All the same, I told him, but he asked if I was certain that he was not my wife's lover. I got offended at this point and asked what he was trying to insinuate, Dave said that he observed a certain type of chemistry between the two during the dinner when he was at my place, and he said that they were oddly close. I told Dave that they're siblings, so why would they not be close? I asked him to not make such a heavy assumption based on what he saw and reassured him that my marriage was in perfect shape. He noted that though it seemed so at the time, it was only a matter of time before things went away. He advised that I be on the lookout, but I reaffirmed that there was no reason for me to be suspicious, and I did not plan to take Dave's word seriously, but for some reason, his words had sunk into my mind and I began to pay attention to my wife and Mark. The more I looked, the more I began to see the closeness which Dave even talked about. It was as though they had something that they wanted to hide. My jealousy had the better of me on a Sunday evening when we were having dinner. Sarah was serving the dishes, and I noticed the exchange of subtle smiles between the both of them, so I flared up. It was so bad that I pushed some of the plates onto the floor where they got broken. And Sarah and Mark were both oh so shocked at my sudden burst of anger, and I did not even give one bit of an explanation. I simply told Mark to leave my house that very evening because he had simply overstayed his welcome. Both he and Sarah asked what the heck the issue was, and I said that I would not be taken for a fool, not a fool inside of my own house, you know. They still looked puzzled as Mark asked what the heck did he do wrong. I asked if they felt I was too dumb to not notice that something was going on between the two of them. I began to point out my observations and concluded by saying that I would not share my wife with anyone, and if Sarah had an issue with Mark leaving the house that night, she could join him. Mark's eyes popped open wide and Sarah broke down in tears. She asked how I could have imagined such a thing, and she then began to say that the only reason why it seemed as though as she and Mark were hiding something from me was because they actually were, but it was not for the same reason I thought. Well, Sarah said that she was pregnant and she and Mark have been planning a little party, where she would disclose the news to me. She pulled out the pregnancy test results and handed it over to me and went inside our room and slammed the door. I felt so stupid for entertaining the thought that my wife would be cheating on me with her own stepbrother. I apologized to Mark, who was clearly disappointed in me before going ahead to sleep in one of the spare rooms that we had in the house. I woke up very early the next morning to the sound of somebody moving things as I went to find out what it was. It turned out to be Sarah trying to move out of the house. I pleaded with Sarah because I knew moving out of the house was the first step before divorce, and I didn't want my family separated, especially not because I refused to trust my wife. Sarah initially insisted she did not want to be around me. She claimed that she could not be with somebody who would choose trusting his friend over her. I had to plead with Mark to help beg his stepsister, and Sarah finally decided to stay after her stepbrother joined in to plead with her. I was really sorry for almost ruining my marriage, and I sought for ways to just straight up make amends. The first thing that I did was promise a severance of my friendship with Dave. So I approached my friends and business partner, who was eager to learn about my discovery. I told him of how I had almost lost my marriage because of him painting a picture of something that simply, did not exist. And, he made some lousy apology while noting that, quote, one can never be certain with women. I immediately went on to warn him that I was sure about the woman whom I had gotten married to, and I noted that though we were business partners who owned equal stakes in the company that we had set up, it was best if we kept our relation purely professional, because I would not condone any more unjustifiable accusations against my wife. Sarah gave birth to our first child, and I asked Mark to become his godfather. I mean, who else would be perfect for it? It's been 15 years, and my relationship with Dave has remained professional like I wanted it to, while my marriage was like heaven on earth after that. I thought throughout all these years that cutting off Dave was the right decision. So Mark is currently doing well, and though he stays on his own, he's been a permanent figure in the life of our two kids. Sarah's currently pregnant with the third, and though the news of my wife being pregnant should be a good one, my heart is currently aching as a result of it, and this is not because we don't want a kid. Sarah went for her prenatal checkup at the hospital 3 days ago, and though I'd offered to go with her, she noted, "Oh, don't worry, it's not necessary." Well, I asked her later on about how it went, and she claimed everything was fine with the baby. The baby's in great shape, and I took her word for it and did not ask her for the results that I had total faith and trust in my wife. I came back home yesterday much earlier than I used to because I needed a document that I had left at the house that morning, and I was told by my two kids that their mom had gone to the grocery store to pick up some things. I was searching for the document when I stumbled upon the prenatal test results. A major test that's carried out during the prenatal phase is known as the RH factor test, to identify potential risk and take preventive measures if necessary, of course. The test clearly showed that the baby is RH positive. You know, I'm not, well, what they call a medical practitioner, but I know for sure that this is supposed to be impossible because me and my wife are, RH negative? I did not just bank on my shallow knowledge in biology, so I called up a friend who works in the healthcare sector. I claimed I was having an argument with somebody and wanted to find out if it's possible for parents who had a negative RH factor to have a child who was positive RH. He laughed and said, medically, dude, no, impossible, and said that a possible explanation was that the baby's true father was, in fact, RH positive. I almost died on the inside. Sarah took longer to return from the grocery store, and what she had packed was not really much. A pointer that she had gone somewhere else. So I did not act like I had learned about the test results. I met with Dave at the office this morning, and he thought that I had come strictly for business, but I started off by apologizing for cutting him off years back. Dave stayed quiet and just stared at me as I admitted it was wrong thing to have done, and then he guessed that my wife was cheating on me after all. Well, I noted that he was correct, and he did not laugh at me. He rather said that the very words which he had said 15 years ago, "You can never be certain with women." He pointed to my situation as one of the classic reasons why marriage was not for him. I sat in his office with no idea of what to do. I was not the father of the pregnancy, but I could not tell who it was either. Dave then advised me to run a DNA test on my 2 kids, and if it turned out that I'm not the father, then it would mean that Sarah's infidelity was as old as my marriage, and Mark was going to be the prime suspect. Tears streamed down my face right there, and Dave was right. A DNA test is the right thing to do, but I'm scared of the outcome. What if it came back negative? How could I settle with the fact that the 2 kids who I loved all my life were not mine? So, I basically have been training somebody else's children, and even if they were mine, how do I deal with this pregnancy that is not mine? It's past office hours, but I'm still at the office as I type this because I'm scared to go home. I don't know how I would even be able to look at Sarah right inside of the face and act like this is all well and good because it's simply not okay. What would you do if you guys were in my position? Please let me know. Update number 1. I'm currently shattered as I write this. It's been more than a week and the DNA results have came back. I've been training someone else's kids for the past 15 years, and to make matters worse, they're the kids of Sarah's stepbrother. What did I do to deserve this level of wickedness, you ask? I discreetly ran the DNA test just as Dave had advised, and it turned out that I was indeed not the real father. I don't know what to do, but I tried my best to act like everything was okay. I woke each day looking at my wife and the kids who I thought were mine, and I did not know how to relate to them. I knew, however, that I could not let Sarah sense that something was wrong. Otherwise, she would come up with the same plot to hide her deeds. The next phase was to run a DNA test using Mark's sample, but the issue was how to get one. I could not just show up at his place, and it's been a while since he last showed up at my house. An idea popped into my head. My first son's birthday, his godson, was right around the corner, and I knew it would be perfect of an avenue to get the sample that I wanted. When you come to think of it, Mark had never missed any important day in the life of the children. I called Mark over the phone to remind him of my son's birthday, and I noted that he had to be there because we were celebrating. Well, Mark said he would not miss it for anything in this world, of course, and I suggested to my wife that we set up her stepbrother with a lady during the party, and she became sort of, aggressive. She asked why I thought it was going to be a great idea for that, and I said that Mark was old enough to have a family of his own, and the party was a wonderful avenue to get him set up with someone. Sarah said that Mark was not a child, right, and should not be forced to get into a relationship when he wasn't ready. I tried to push the matter a little bit, just to see if I could do something to her, and the more I pushed it, the more she got irritated. You could tell that there was a hint of jealousy in those eyes. I didn't stop there, guys. I had planned with Dave, whose sister was going to act like one of my acquaintances, and just intentionally make passes at Mark during the party. Yep, it played out just like I had arranged, and even though Mark did not seem initially interested, the lady just kept hovering about him. You could see disgust written all over Sarah's face, and if there was nothing more than siblings, why was she acting so jealous? I'm certain that if Sarah had her way, she would have kicked that lady out of the house, and she, however, channeled her frustrations toward me for still going ahead with the hookup scheme. The party ended very well, and I was able to get a DNA sample from the glass that Mark used to drink water. I ran the test, and the results came back positive. So Mark and Sarah had been playing me for all these years, huh? I still held my peace and did not act immediately. I would not lie, though, living in the same house with Sarah and the 2 kids, like we're one big happy family, was the most difficult thing that I've ever done in my life, and I could not keep up with it, so I lied to Sarah that I was going away for a 2-week business trip. I just needed some space from her before I exploded, and I equally wanted her to let her guard down so I could successfully carry out my next plot. Guys, I hired a private investigator. That's right. During the 2 weeks that I was going to be away from my family, and the private investigator reached out to me about a week later. He had gotten enough evidence to prove that Sarah was 100% in a relationship with Mark. I stared at the pictures and videos. It was them kissing each other, but nothing at this point seemed to be surprising to me anymore. I guess I had been so hurt that I had become numb to the pain, even though the hunger for revenge was heavy on my inside. I showed Dave the evidence which I had collected, and if you saw the way he reacted, you would think that he was the one who had been cheated on by his wife. He literally demanded the head of my wife, from divorcing Sarah down to dragging her and her lover to court. There was no kind of punishment that he did not describe. I stayed calm for a while, then I told him that the only thing I had to do now was to throw a party to celebrate my anniversary. Dave could not understand why I planned on throwing a party to celebrate my anniversary with all that's been going on lately. Well, my wife and her lover had played me for years, and divorce, was just not going to be easy for her. The party would be a means of repayment in their own coin, and I got back to the house yesterday, and Sarah acted like she and the kids had missed me while I was away. I played the fool and acted like I didn't know what's been going on. I even went as far as to thank her for saying I do to me years ago, suggesting we should throw a very big anniversary party, because our party will be taking place in 2 weeks, and I just hope it goes as I planned. So guys, I'll go ahead and update you when I figure that one out. Update number 2. Wow. I've been too focused on myself all this while to not think about those who were equally, if not mostly, going to be affected by the actions I was going to take. They're currently staying with me, the kids, but their mother is nowhere in sight. The anniversary party took place 3 days ago and the entire family was there. I'd made sure that both extended families did not miss out on what was to be the drama of the century. Another reason for wanting them present is because they would understand my reason for divorcing Sarah afterward. So guys, I threw an elaborate anniversary party. There were different phases of the party, but the main event was going to be towards the end. The whole thing was going well, and an opportunity was given to those present to ask us questions. One of Sarah's sisters asked what we would call the secret to a successful marriage since we've been together for almost 2 decades. I gave Sarah the go-ahead to answer the question, and she said that though we seemed great now, there was a time where she almost threw in the towel. She referred to the Dave situation, and everybody gasped as she stated that I almost believed she was cheating on me at the time with her stepbrother. Sarah went on to say that I immediately corrected my mistake by cutting off from Dave and intentionally taking steps to keep folks out of our marriage. She then told everybody that we barely argued over the years after we learned to trust each other and not to bring 3D parties into our union. Everyone, including Mark, gave a rousing applause, and I was just glad that she brought up the infidelity accusation, as I was eager to see the people's reaction when I proved to them that our marriage has been nothing more than a lie, and Sarah was actually having an affair with her own stepbrother. The event got to the point where I've been waiting. I had prepared a slideshow on a projector, which consisted on early years of our lives as a couple. I announced and pleaded with everyone to pay attention to the images. I listened and watched as those present, especially older couples, displayed nostalgic emotions as they saw our images. The images gradually transitioned to text messages between Sarah and Mark, where they talked about their nasty plans of meeting up behind my back. I had taken time to get the screenshots all from the chat message logs, everything, from my wife's phone during the party. Everybody was taken aback, even though they had not fully gotten the hang of what exactly was going on at this time. The image, you can say that immediately got them. The image immediately turned to Sarah and Mark kissing each other. It was at this time that everybody now gasped in surprise. The images continued to change to different accusations where the two lovers were busy with themselves, and Sarah immediately ran to disconnect it. I stood up and began to address everyone. I affirmed that my friend had told me years back that something was likely going on between Sarah and Mark, but they had manipulated me into thinking that it was all a lie. I went ahead to tell them about how I had discovered that I was not the owner of Sarah's pregnancy, and this led me to run a DNA test on the two children, which we had, and the results came out to be negative. I produced the DNA test and all the results, which showed that Mark was the actual father of the kids and the likely owner of the pregnancy, and everybody froze to their bones. Sarah began to say it was all a lie, but her words were not strong enough to dispute the evidence that was staring at everyone in the face. All eyes were fixed on Sarah, and Mark was already trying to sneak out, but I was not going to let him off easily. I pounced on him, and we began to scatter the whole place. Those around managed to break us, and Mark seized the opportunity to flee the scene. I turned to the face and the cheat that I've been living with for some years, but Mark would be a fool to think that he had heard the last of me. I saw Sarah driving off, and I went straight to the house because I just knew that it was the very place she was headed to. I got to the house, and Sarah was already in the room trying to pack her things, and I went after her in a rage. I pinned her to the wall and asked her what I have done wrong to deserve this kind of wickedness, which she had meted out to me. Our two kids. It feels odd calling them my kids, doesn't it? Stood there watching me, thinking I was being aggressive to their mother for no just cause. Sarah was lucky enough that some persons trailed me down to the house as they rightfully suspected that I was coming after her. They rushed in and rescued me from her grip, and I, however, made sure that she left the house that night with nothing but the clothes on her back. I did not even let her take the kids. I might not be the biological father, but I have loved and cared for them like they were my own for their whole life. I would be taking them to go and stay with my parents till the whole dust settles. I just hope I don't have to see those jerks ever in my life again. Final update. I'm afraid my story does not have the kind of ending that I wanted, and I'm currently trying to rebuild my life from scratch, and Dave is encouraging me to walk his path, no marriage or kids. After I had sent the kids to temporarily stay with my parents, I began to divorce proceedings, and even sued my wife and her lover for infidelity and intentionally inflicting emotional distress on me. Mark and Sarah had been alienated from the family who wanted nothing to do with them. Their father, who suffered a heart attack on the night of the drama, has already disowned them. The summoning, the legal papers that showed both Sarah and her lover being sued. It was delivered to them as they both lived in the same apartment now. Sarah showed up at my house and demanded to have her things and her children. You remember that the only thing she had left with that night was the clothes on her back? Well, she stood in front of me with an air of entitlement that was sickening. She said that if there was supposed to be a case between the both of us, then she was supposed to be the plaintiff while I was to be the dependent, because she had suffered a miscarriage as a result of me physically assaulting her. I don't know the cause of her miscarriage, but the physical assault claim by her was absolutely preposterous. I'd only pinned her to the wall with my hands on the night and nothing more. Besides, she had just lost her pregnancy, and I guess that she thought, I don't want to undervalue life, but there's no way whatever she lost could be compared to the damage she's done to me. I don't want to trade words with Sarah, as I knew I could lose my cool, so I just banged the door on her, while she barked like a mad lady on the outside. Sarah finally left my home, but she filed a countersuit against me with the claim of physically assaulting her. Well, we finally met in court, and Sarah accused me of several things. She claimed that she had repeatedly suffered abuse during the years while we were married, and it was while she was seeking help from the arms of her stepbrother that they began a relationship. Sarah noted that visibly proof of the physical abuse that she had suffered at my hands was the miscarriage that she had recently suffered. She went ahead to demand for half of my property and argued that we both built it over the years, so she deserves it just as much as I do. Wow. I had lots of evidence that showed that Sarah was a lying, deceptive, manipulative witch. And besides the compensation which I sought for emotional distress, I equally demanded for custody of the kids. After reviewing the case, Sarah and I were finally divorced, and she and her lover were both demanded to pay me $15,000 for compensation, but I did not get the custody of the children since they were not mine to begin with. Though I'm happy that those cheaters are facing punishment for their crime, I don't know how I would start all over to rebuild my life after over 15 years of deception. I don't feel like its time is going to be on my side. I really don't. And even if I should give it a shot, well, what guarantee do I have that the next lady who crosses paths with me would not be another Sarah in disguise? I believe that Sarah must have been involved with her stepbrother before she even met me, and the reason she agreed to go ahead with the marriage was so that she could use it to smoke screen and hide what was really going on. I guess I would stick to Dave's pattern of living for now. Life without commitment to any woman. And if you ever come across my reciting my mantra, here it is. You can't be certain with women. Just know I'm talking from a place of experience. Anyways, I'd still like to thank you guys for sticking around to the end of this drama when I literally thought I would lose it all.